Thanks everyone for joining in today. I want to say hi and welcome. Um, as you already know, this is a seminar on surrogacy in Mexico, pretty much just support guidance for intended parents. And as I was mentioning to the first ones that joined, we'll be joined today by Sofia, who will be helping us out going through kind of the legal process and everything that entails. Kind of an introduction, I might already know some of you that are here, but for those that I do not know, I'm just going to kind of speak briefly about Gestacy, our program, and pretty much how we can help you. So Gestacy, we're a US agency. We started out in 2017. Kind of our main concern has always been to help international IPs going through surrogacy programs. At the beginning in the US and 2020 in Mexico. And the idea is helping out in surrogacy journeys focused primarily on consent, human rights, and supporting both intended parents and surrogates throughout the journey itself. To give you an overview of the program, in the last year, we've supported around 70 intended parents, different nationalities, I would say over 20 at the moment in the program. And the idea is to offer a pathway to parenthood that is both accessible and secure. The Mexican program, comparatively to the US and others, offers also quite a few benefits. For example, it's lower cost comparatively to the US or Canada, as well as excellent medical outcomes with partner clinics, and also a framework where both intended parents can appear in the birth certificate from the beginning. I would say that, as I was mentioning previously, what sets apart Gestacy from other agencies pretty much is the ethical and quality standards that we brought from our US program into Mexico. This means that we have a rigorous screening process when going through surrogates, both medical, psychological, and social. We try to present costs for the journey itemized and in a very transparent way, so there are no hidden fees or surprises. And then we also have a strong ethical focus on supporting both intended parents and surrogates. Also, on a coordination level, surrogates and pretty much all staff members that you will be dealing with are bilingual. They'll be able to help you communicate among each other and with surrogates themselves. Then I think I can after this short intro, I'll actually let Sofia kind of talk over to intended parents about surrogacy in Mexico and the laws and how the regulatory framework is set up.
Sure. Thank you so much, Pedro. Well, the things that you have to get in mind is surrogacy is expressly recognized by the Supreme Court and the other high courts. And especially in Mexico City, we have expressed recognition of certain laws that recognize, surrogacy. Now, what is the conflict or the obstacle that we may face during the process? The main obstacle is the presumption of maternity, because the law understands that the women that carries a baby and gives birth will be considered the mother. But at the same time, the laws establishes that once, in case of surrogacy, that presumption of maternity won't be applicable. So that contradiction in the same legal system enforce us to start some trials to obtain a court order that allow us to enforce to civil registry to issue a birth certificate with both of the parents' names on it, without the surrogate. So this is the main obstacle that we have to pass. But in general, the process that we follow here in Cibeles and in coordination with Gestacy will be based on the human rights of all parties involved. And based on that, we are going to start each journey taking care that all parties grant the informed consent before each step. So, well, I don't know, Pedro, if you want that I explain what are the steps that we should pass during the process, or of I mean, sorry, you are on mute.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you like, I can kind of go through first steps, and as we are getting near towards the contract part, I'll hand the word over to you again. So pretty much the idea, as Sofia was saying, that is pretty much the legal framework in Mexico, kind of focusing on how the program works. And once you decide to move forward in the journey itself, first thing is pretty much sitting down with all of you, which are intended parents. Some of you actually already know me, as we already are in communication. But the idea is, once you decide to move forward, is to sit down, hear you out, and pretty much try to have a full vision of what type of surrogacy journey are you looking for, what type of surrogate criteria do you desire, what type of communication do you wish with the surrogate, and getting a full idea of the whole process. Generally, depending on situation of each intended parent, we'll be dealing with either creating from scratch, which means finding an egg donor, finding the right clinic, and creating the embryos, or we can be dealing with pretty much shipping of embryos to Mexico City from other parts of the world. The idea is that during those first few months, as we're doing all of this process, on the other side of the agency, pretty much we'll be dealing with going through surrogate screening. Surrogate screening at the moment is taking around 3 months in total before we're able to introduce any candidate to intended parents. And then depending on your criteria, you can even go into 4 months if intended parents add extra opinions to the process or the search itself. Then kind of how matching will go. It's pretty simple. At the end of that period, once we've already found that candidate that we think would be a very good match or a very good candidate to go through the journey, we'll be introducing a written profile. You'll be able to review that, ask us any questions, talk to your coordinator, go over any doubts, any extra information that you might desire, and then you'll decide whether you would like to actually meet the candidate. We'll try to kind of fast track that introduction as much as possible, generally within 3 to 5 days after you give us the go-ahead, and then you'll be able to meet with the surrogate with the support of Gestacy. For that first call, you'll have both your case coordinator and surrogate coordinator to be present. The idea is for them to facilitate communication as much as possible and to able to, in case of it's needed, to translate both sides of both surrogates and intended parents. After that call, generally, intended parents will let us know if they want to proceed with the candidate or if for whatever reason candidate doesn't feel like a good match. In case that happens, pretty much I'll be introducing a new profile, generally around 2 to 4 weeks after the initial one, as intended parents are taking priority over others when it comes to matching. If intended parents decide to move forward, pretty much we'll be signing that match sheet, kind of getting everything in order, exchanging personal information, both surrogate and intended parents desire so, and then we'll start going through the medical screening. Medical screening, because most of our screening process will have already done the vast amount of testing and things needed to actually go through the journey. Generally, it's limited to a physical evaluation and just review of testing that we've previously done a month or so before. Once we've actually got the medical clearance is the moment where actually Sofia and the Cibeles team generally will be joining, and they'll be able, and Sofia herself will be able to let you know kind of how the contract works. And also, Sofia, if, because this is something that I did not mention, but if you also can elaborate on documents intended parents need before kind of getting to the drafting, that also would be great.
Yes. Well, in this part of the process, Cibeles will be, well, once both parties pass through a psychological assessment, socio-economical assessment, we will gather also a non-criminal backgrounds of both parties, and this information will allow us to make due diligence to analyze the potential risk that the parties, according to your specific circumstances, could face, may face during the process. And the point here is we would like to prevent that risk and offer a solution, an anticipate solution. But supposing that both parties pass this preliminary due diligence and we determine that there's the risks are assumable, we are going to draft the first surrogacy agreement where first the intended parents will review it and approval. And then the surrogate will pass, will review the agreement and approval with her own independent lawyer. This independent representation is really important for us because that allows us to guarantee that both parties will grant their consent well informed about the risk and about the legal, medical, and social risks that you may face during the process. Now, once both parties enter into this surrogacy agreement, that will be the green light for your medical team to start the hormonal preparation to make the embryo transfer. In this moment, we also have to be in constant communication with Gestacy, of course, and with your medical team to gather all the clinical file of the embryo and the embryo transfer process. That will allow us to gather the enough evidence that will be the base of our legal actions that we will start during the pregnancy. As you may see, the most important, the core element of each surrogacy process, even if you are working with Gestacy or with all other agencies, you have to make sure that both parties grant an informed consent. And if this is an advantage of our collaboration because we take care of that. And then, later I can explain you about the judicial process.
Sofia, now that we also have you here, and this is something that that lots of intended parents are asking me when we're doing initial communication and kind of first questions is, are surrogacy contracts able to be enforced? Also, another question that they tend to have is if intended parents would like to have kind of extra screening or kind of certain testing during the journey, is that something that can be added into the contracts? Can they be personalized? Kind of, that is something that it's always
okay. Well, regarding the first question, the surrogacy contract is enforceable. Now, depending on what you want to make enforceable. if you are talking about a abortion, for example, in Mexico City, we have our country, our state, and almost in all states, is allowed to interrupt the pregnancy up to 12 weeks. That means that even the surrogate enter into this agreement, and if even she accept to becoming a surrogate and start this journey with you, nothing could interfere in her decision of her own body. And if suddenly she feel bad and emotionally or physically she's suffering, she will have the right to interrupt the pregnancy, and we cannot obligate her to continue with it. And that is because we cannot forget that we are human beings supporting other human beings. She's not a machine. She's not she's a woman that is setting her life in risk for other people, and this is one of the most difficult parts to understand. And we obviously understand that it's really complicated to accept that since the intended parent's perspective, but depending on the context and depending on the problem that we are facing, we cannot enforce the conduct.
No, I mean, when I meant enforcing, obviously I understand that what you have explained as you mentioned. What I just meant is it when it comes to being recognized by Mexican law courts and everything, they do understand.
Of course, as I mentioned, depending on what we are talking regarding the parentage, is completely enforceable, because our Supreme Court already established that the procreational will, it's a way to determine the filiation. And in case of surrogacy, the filiation should be formally expressed in the contract. So the contract will be the base of our legal action, and we are going to enforce that procreational intention during the process. Now, it's important that it's not enough to express formally that intention. We have to act in consequence of that intention. And during the pregnancy, you must procure the pregnancy to prove your intention. So you have to express formally and then act in consequence of that.
Okay, and then the other thing that that I mentioned, can contracts be personalized? Can intended parents? Obviously, again, keeping in mind that not everything can be put in a surrogacy contract, but can they be personalized or modified according to each case and each intended parent?
Of course. Each contract is made case by case, and the contract always is changing and it's adapting to the new circumstances. So yes, of course, it's not a template. We are a lot of people believe that this is a template, but not. We have a base, but the contract is a live contract that we have to adjust according to the special circumstances of parties.
Perfect. I'm seeing that we have a question from Luke. Luke, is it okay that we'll continue moving a bit forward and then we'll reply to your question on when exactly court's order happens? Because it is kind of a multiple choice answer here. So kind of the idea. Perfect, thanks. So pretty much as Sofía was saying, once contract is completely finished, that will give the go-ahead for transfers to happen. Also very important, the other thing that will determine when transfers can happen is when insurance for the surrogate actually kicks in and starts covering her. So generally, from the moment that you're matching, which as I was mentioning previously, tends to be around 3-4 months, you're looking at another 3 months or so for transfer to happen. So generally around 7 months on average after signing, we can actually envision or start going into transfers. Sophia, the timing or the amount of time that it takes to uh, draft and sign that contract, generally how much is taking for intended parents?
Well, the process of entering into this agreement, it's around 1 month because we are going to we're going to make the preliminary due diligence. Then, if everything is okay, we are going to draft we are going to draft the first draft, sorry, and it takes around 1 week. Then you will have around 2 weeks to read it. And once we receive your approval, the surrogates should have the same time that you had to review it and give her approval. And then you will sign through an electronic platform, so you don't have to be physically present here, and that will allow us to coordinate everything and sign and formalize the contract in 1 month, or 1 month or 1 month and a half, but obviously depending on the times that you need to understand your arrangements. But usually 1 month or 1 month and a half.
Perfect. So pretty much that's kind of the timeline, especially just going from signing all the way to transfers, just to give you a quick overview. When it comes to transfers, that is pretty much essential part of the journey, as most of you already know. Clinics that we collaborate in Mexico, there are quite a few. Lots of you have already heard me talk about Fertilidad Integral. We also collaborate with RMA. There's also UR Crea, Kiromedic, just to name a few. With that being said, very important for all intended parents, Gestacy is always open to working with intended parents' clinic of choice. We're able to recommend different clinics, but ultimately it is up to intended parents to actually choose whichever clinic you prefer. With that being said, most clinics that we collaborate with, and as I was elaborating at the beginning, have pretty good success rates, generally speaking, at least from last year. Going over kind of the tally and transfers and everything, around 70% of intended parents achieve pregnancy within the first transfer, around 80 by the second, and around 90% by the third. Obviously, this will be affected by several factors, as quality of embryos and pretty much as quality of embryos, quality of sperm, and how everything was, and how the medical process went. But I just wanted to give you kind of a small overview of kind of what can you expect on that end. When it comes to the surrogacy journey or the pregnancy itself, just again to recap very fastly, Gestacy, on top of the medical support that she'll be receiving through the fertility clinic during the first 3 months, and then through the obstetric during the last 2 trimesters, we also include nutritionist and psychological support on a monthly basis. Surrogates will be supported. They'll be able to talk to different professionals that will be helping them throughout the pregnancy itself. We also provide transportation to and from any appointment. Not all of you have been to Mexico City, but commuting can be quite long. So generally, we try to ease the surrogate's life as much as possible on that end. And then when it comes to communication, very important, Gestacy will be on a weekly communication with the surrogate, or at least a weekly communication during the whole pregnancy. And then depending on certain timings, or for example, prepping for the transfer, generally we'll be going into daily communication with the surrogate. Also, as I mentioned from the beginning, one of the most important aspects for the program for us is for intended parents to be able to talk directly to the surrogate and to have pretty much to establish the communication that they desired throughout throughout the throughout the whole journey. If intended parents speak Spanish, generally you'll be able to talk directly to the surrogate. If that's not the case, case coordinators will be able to provide assistance. Generally, intended parents are adding case coordinator into a WhatsApp group and kind of keeping communication through there, or establishing kind of monthly or bi-weekly meetings with the surrogate through FaceTime, and for us to help you guide also that communication. And then I will be going back into the legal, which pretty much is, and I'll actually kind of let you continue, Sofia, about kind of how the legal process develops, but specifically going into Luke's question, which was pretty much when the court orders start.
Okay. Well, in Cibeles, we have several strategies. We have pre-birth strategies and post-birth strategies. I need to clarify that it's not an option to decide what strategy to start. For us, it's important to save time and to start the strategies around week 12 of the pregnancy. This will allow us, because we cannot guarantee the result, and sometimes we will, especially with the pre-birth trials, it's not possible to obtain a pre-birth court order. It's multifactorial because, for example, your baby born premature, or because the judge consider that they cannot resolve the dispute that we are going to present them until the baby is born. And the successful rate in these pre-birth trials is 50%, literally, because in Mexico City we have 13 federal judges. And another day I was reviewing the rate, and literally 7 have issue favorable rulings pre-birth, and the others have denied to accept our petition without that baby born. So in that case, in case that it's not possible to obtain this court order before the birth, we have to migrate to a post-birth strategy. In both strategies, the result is the same. We are going to obtain a court order that will enforce the civil registry to issue the birth certificate with the name of the parents, no matter the type of family on it, and without the surrogate. There's many difference between one and the other one, because in the first trial, the surrogate is the main claimant, and we are going to follow the trial before federal courts, and the time expected to obtain a final ruling is in 6 months. And well, and the purpose of the claim is to inapplicate this presumption of maternity that I already mentioned. In the post-birth trial, it's a claim that we will file before local courts here in Mexico City. It's an action that is regulated by the Mexico City Constitution. And the main claimants will be the parents and the baby. The authority that will be the defendant is the civil registry, and the purpose is to to have this court order that explain to the civil registry how to issue the birth certificate without the surrogate. And thank you. Look. What else? The difference, the other difference between the first one and the second strategy will be the time, because per statistic, with the first strategy, we could obtain a birth certificate around 4 or 5 weeks after birth, and with the second strategy, usually takes around 8 or 9 weeks. Each case is different, and you must be prepared for everything. There are cases that are super fast and the process goes smoothly, but there are another cases where the law clerk is we have to deal a lot with the law clerk and takes more time. But at the end of the process, or the thing that you have to make sure is that the risk is not to determine if you are going to be recognized or not as a parent. The successful rate of that is 100%. What is the risk? The time, because we don't have even we have clear pathways and enough cases that allow us to give you estimation time to obtain the identity documents. Each time is different, and you must be prepared for everything. But well, after we obtain the birth certificate, you can pass to the you can obtain the Mexican passport, because your baby will be Mexican only for have born here. And but you at this point you can take advantage of your own nationalities. I mean, if you are from the US, or you are from Canada, or you are from Germany, it's possible to obtain the passports of your nationalities that will allow you to leave the country with that document faster, because the Mexican passport usually takes up to 45 working days to be granted. And we have strategies to try to reduce that time, but not in all cases it's possible, depending on the judge and depending on the law clerk. And well, the worst case scenario is 45 working days, and you have to be prepared for that.
Perfect. I'm going to be asking some of the questions that that are being written in the chat. Just before that, also another frequent question that I get from intended parents. In case that intended parents decide to start with the pre-birth amparo or order, and for whatever reason it doesn't work, are they able to continue or to translate to the post-birth?
Exactly.
Perfect. And then I'll start pretty much with the first one. Diego is asking, do we have to be in Mexico for that time being?
Well, the estimation time is 14 weeks. Based on our statistics, this is 14 weeks. But as you may know, the statistics is based on cases where they could leave the country faster. I think that our base case is 6 weeks, but we have cases that they will leave the country in 20 weeks. So depending on the case, the special circumstances, the law clerk, the court. So there's many circumstances, but the statistics said 14 weeks.
And yeah, indeed. I mean, at least if it's a couple, at least one of the intended parents will have to stay in Mexico for sure.
That's
Um,
really
exactly those months. If yeah, if it's a couple, then one has to stay. If it's only a single intended parent, then yes, you would have to stay for that duration.
it's
Sorry.
sorry, Pedro. I want to mention that if you are a couple or if you have families that it is supporting you, if you are a single father or mother and you have family that is supporting you, and you have to leave the country, you can grant us a power of attorney, and we can recognize before civil registry. We can make the inscription before civil registry on your behalf. The we cannot help you with any power of attorney before Foreign Affairs Office to request the passport. That is completely personal, and you must be here to request it. But talking about the birth certificate, if you have to leave and then come back, we can do it that for you.
Yeah.
But we need to present the baby, and we need someone to help us to do that.
Yeah, and then yeah, pretty much just kind of to go over what Sofia said. Indeed, it's not a matter of if, but just when. So kind of, I think that would be the best thing to keep in mind as you're going through the journey, and also, as Sofia has mentioned, due to the complexity of each journey, and due to the fact that there is no kind of established framework that will let us know. Generally, we always recommend intended parents to reach out either to me or to Sofia to actually kind of have a conversation and for us to give you kind of more approximate times on what can you expect and how things can go depending on your situation, because as Sofia said, different nationalities will be different situations. Resident status in those countries will also lead to different outcomes. And then pretty much judge that your sign and process that you're doing can also, as Sofia was explaining before, change the outcome. I'll go to the second question, Sofia, which is it a matter of which judge you'll end up with, or can intended parents do something to obtain the pre-birth order? Do the terms of the contract have any impact or have an impact?
Well, yes. Everything will be a factor, an important factor, but even at the end of the process, if the judge consider that it's not the moment to resolve the dispute about the filiation of the baby, even we present a complete file, completely transparent about the surrogacy process. If the judge doesn't want to resolve the dispute before the birth, we have the option to appeal and to go over a high court. The time runs against us, because we have 6 months to obtain a pre-birth order, and the justice is not super fast. So we have to consider that. You are on mute.
Yeah, my mute. Sorry. So yeah. Also, we have another question from Raquel. We already kind of answered it. Yes, indeed. Exit process is dependent on the countries that intended parents are from.
Yeah.
Pretty much, it is dependent just because, as Sofia was saying, if intended parents cannot obtain own passport from their own nationality, they are expecting a longer wait for the Mexican passport, generally around those 45 days, as worst case scenario. But if intended parents are from the US or Canada, generally their consulates will be faster in issuing paperwork.
They are European countries that are supporting their own citizens, but not all of them. In our experience, countries like Germany or France, they are granting travel documents to that allow the babies to leave the country with it, but not all European countries.
Okay, and then we also have a question from Victor. He asks whether you always try to do the pre-birth strategy.
Yes, always.
Perfect. Also, if you guys want to continue asking any questions, I'll let you know that the that the chat is open for this, so it's not a problem. Actually, Diego has also right again. He's asking specifically about if Portugal facilitates exit strategy.
I heard recently that yes, but to be honest, I don't have previous experience in that with that nationality. We have to investigate, and we can, if you want, you can send me an email, and we can investigate together if it's possible or not.
Exactly. Then pretty much kind of also to where we already did the pregnancy. I was thinking, Sofía, from the legal point of view, anything else you also want to add? Any other question? Any other kind of things that you might have forgot to tell before, or?
No, I think that it's everything so far.
Okay, perfect. We also have another question from Spain. Do you want to?
No. From Spain, it's not possible to obtain a passport, and all Spain citizens should request the Mexican passport to leave the country.
Yeah. Generally, out of personal experience, I can tell you, a Spanish consulate won't help. So it'll be everything through the Mexican authorities, passport, and then returning. Then we also have another question from Luke, actually, that wasn't replied early on. It says, is the surrogacy program through Gestacy Mexico available for Canadian couples? What about single dads? Is the program available for them as well? Very important indeed. Program is open to everyone. Only things that Gestacy will be asking, and actually I forgot in the brief intro, and Sofía mentioned it later on. Intended parents are doing a psych evaluation. Intended parents have to pass that, and we are helping all intended parents under the age of 55 to go through the program. With that being said, we support all types of families, whether that's straight, same-sex couples, single dads, moms. That is not really a problem. Also, Sofía, from the legal point of view, Mexico is also a country open for everyone, right?
Yes.
Perfect. I hope that also answers your question. I'm not sure if you have any other questions, any other doubts that you might, any expected changes after all. Very important. Sofía, Luke is also asking whether we can expect any changes when it comes to surrogacy in Mexico City after the process selection of the new judges.
Well, this is a difficult question to answer. The thing is, the law is not changing, and the process won't change. Now, with the new judges, the thing is, our statistic will change because we cannot predict how they will resolve this. Not how. I mean, how long will take them to issue the cases? Even the law established determine or certain time frames. well, the transition will affect us naturally, and I think that this will be the main how can I say the main problem, or I don't know. And the second thing is, but well, I remain positive because the law is the same. The Constitution is establishing that well, is recognizing all type of families, recognize from the surrogate perspective, recognize that she has a reproduction autonomy, and she has the right of deciding of her own body, and nobody could interfere in that decision. And a Mexican baby will have the right of a nationality and identity and affiliation. So the legal framework is not changing. The thing is, I suppose that the time will be the main problem here. But well, is what it is.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty much better time. Luke says whether it might be better timing or worst.
Well, I don't know because I cannot answer that. But the good thing is that the transition is not for all judges. So the transition period will be progressive. So we will have the first change on September, and then 2 years later we have another change, and so we will have a little bit. So we will continue to some judges that will allow us to predict the time.
Victor is asking when the transition is actually happened. I understand.
The first transition will be on September.
Perfect. And then other question, Andy's asking, experience with travel documents for UK and Ireland IPs.
Yes, the thing is the UK intended parents and Ireland, they need especially from UK, they need a court order to obtain the birth certificate and then the passport, and that. So in my experience, there's no intended parents that could leave the country with the UK passport, but if your lawyers there could reduce the time in obtaining the UK British passport, you will be able to leave the country before before obtaining the Mexican one. And in case of Ireland, I don't have the time frame really fresh, but if you want to send me an email, I can send you the information.
Sorry, look, we had forgotten to reply to the question. Yeah, embryo creation, sex selection at the moment is possible in Mexico. Exactly. And then pretty much we're kind of in the last minutes of the webinar. So I only wanted to also introduce you to Melody. She has actually joined the webinar, and she is a surrogate through the program in Gestacy. And the idea was also for her to actually kind of share her experience and talk to us about how she lived the journey and everything. Hola Melody, ¿qué tal?
Hola Pedro, ¿cómo estás? How are you?
Estoy muy bien, encantado de conocerte.
Igualmente, ya nos habíamos conocido, me invitaron a un desayuno y ya nos habíamos visto.
Cierto. Vale. Pues nada, entonces un poco, hoy hago de tu traductor y,
Sí.
Y pues eso, un poco si quieres comentarnos, pues eso, cómo viste la experiencia, cómo fue el apoyo de Gestacy durante el proceso y pues eso, cualquier cosa que quieras contarle también a los padres que están aquí.
Sí, claro, pues mucho gusto a todos. Mi nombre es Melody. Eh, yo estuve dentro del proceso de subrogación. Empecé a pedir informes desde el año 2023 y apenas nació el bebé el 30 de abril. Si quieres voy como pausando para que vayas,
Eso. So Melody is saying that she started mid 2023 the journey, and then this April, baby was born.
Mi proceso fue un poco largo por el tema de, pues yo tenía unos pólipos que no sabía que tenía y tuve que pues entrar a una pequeña intervención. Eh, Igualmente se atrasó un poco por el tema de los embriones de los IPs que no llegaban. Ellos son de Inglaterra, entonces ahí fue un poquito como el retraso, pero el proceso la verdad es que es muy llevadero y muy amable.
So Melody was just sharing that her journey was a bit longer because there were some polyps found during the medical screening part section, which had to be taken care of, and also intended parents in her case that were from the UK. Took a while to actually form the embryos and travel to Mexico. So that kind of prolonged the journey a bit. But with that being said, she says that it was a very pleasant journey and agreeable, I would say, would be the translation. Continúa, Melody. Sí.
Sí, bueno, igualmente las coordinadoras son muy amables, responden a pues cualquier duda que sea que tenga la gestante. Igual, retomando un poco lo que decía Sofía acerca del contrato, sí te dan bastante tiempo como para poderlo leerlo, entenderlo, y si es que llegas a tener alguna duda, pues obviamente te lo resuelven. Entonces, igualmente lo que dice en el contrato es lo que es el proceso, no hay como engaños, por así decirlo, y tal cual, o sea, el proceso es diferente para pues todos los IPs y todas las gestantes, pero siempre pues queremos llegar a ese mismo finalidad de pues completar una familia.
So Melody was just sharing pretty much that support from coordinators from Gestacy was good during the whole journey. Pretty much they will be kind of following up with her during the whole process. And when it comes to the contract, Melody was just stating that pretty much the contract is what it is, in the sense that it is very transparent, that there aren't any kind of hidden things or anything that wasn't known for them, and that also the agency and lawyers pretty much gives them lots of time to actually review the contract, be completely informed before signing, and move forward. And at the end, kind of that's the purpose of everyone, just to kind of reach that milestone and help out to create a new family.
Sí, no sé si gustes que quiera como agregar algo, alguna duda.
Lo que tú nos quieras comentar, sea algo más tú que quisieras compartir, pues sobre tu experiencia o cualquier cosa, siéntete libre.
Pues acerca de mi experiencia, la verdad es que yo estoy muy contenta con mi proceso. Tuve la suerte, bueno, yo creo que tuvimos la suerte, tanto mis IPs como yo, de conectar bastante. Nos llevamos muy bien. Incluso les comento a modo de broma que si quieren esperarme 2 años para que les ayude con su hermanito del bebé, con todo gusto, yo les ayudo. Tal vez, ¿no? Tal vez lo tomen como broma, tal vez sí se vayan a animar. Entonces, igual, espero que todos los IPs potenciales que están aquí, pues no desesperen, que conserven como su esperanza y su bebé va a llegar pronto con ellos o con ellas o con ellas. Entonces, pues sí, yo quisiera compartir que mi experiencia fue muy bonita, lo volvería a repetir. Obviamente, pues si me da el tiempo de la edad, eh, tal vez con los mismos IPs o tal vez con alguna otra familia o pareja, a mí sí me gustaría volverlo a repetir o no sé, ayudar algo en alguna otra manera. Para mí la experiencia fue muy bonita. Descubrí otra faceta de mí misma que no conocía, no me percibía tan valiente, pero ahora puedo decir que soy una mujer muy valiente. Lo volvería a hacer y lo haría con mucho amor pues sí, por amor, es porque se hace este proceso. Muchas personas lo hacen como por otro objetivo, digámosle dinero, pero yo lo hice con mucho amor, con mucho cariño y la verdad es que fue una experiencia muy bonita para mí y sí, aprendí muchas cosas, aprendí muchas cosas.
Okay, so pretty much kind of final words that Melody wanted to express was that surrogacy journey for her was a very positive experience, a very nice one. She says that she was very lucky that she was able to connect with intended parents and have a close relationship throughout the whole journey. As well, she now says that jokingly, she brings up the fact that if intended parents would like to wait a couple of years, she would be open to doing a sibling journey with them if if they desire so. But that is also open to the future. And then she also said that surrogacy itself was a kind of a discovery journey in the sense that she saw herself in different ways that she hadn't previously, and that she now feels that it is a very brave decision that she took, and as I was saying, that she would be doing it again if she could, and that yeah, and that surrogacy in her case was primarily motivated about love and desire of helping others, and yeah, I think that's pretty much kind of the summary of everything. ¿Eso sería todo, Melody, o quisiera decir
Pues sí, solo retomar nuevamente que pues los padres intencionales que están en el webinar no pierdan la esperanza. La esperanza es lo último que se pierde, decimos en México. Y pues
no sé,
sí, solo eso, que no pierdan la esperanza y pronto van a completar su familia.
Perfecto, sí, gracias por recordarme. So yeah, last thing that I forgot to translate, very important. Melody message for intended parents was for intended parents not to become desperate, that the journey is possible and that it can be successful and that babies will come. Melody says that it's a very common saying in Mexico is the last thing that you should lose is hope. And that you kind of should continue in this path if ultimately that's what you would like. I think those are actually pretty lovely words to finish the webinar. I want to thank first Melody. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos, and also y también para decir tu versión o tu parte del proceso. I also wanted to thank Sofía for joining us and helping us explain all the legal process and with great detail.
Thank you so much for having me. And Melody, eres una guerrera. Yo te admiro muchísimo. Y felicidades. Me alegra mucho que hayas vivido un proceso pues fluido y que te haya hecho reconectar con ti misma, aprender, conocerte a ti misma, y de verdad eres admirable.
Muchas gracias. No, de verdad, gracias a ustedes. No sabía que pues la oportunidad de compartir con ustedes en la agencia me iba a, pues a ayudar a crecer como persona, como madre y como ser humano. La verdad es que me ha ayudado mucho. Estoy muy contenta, la verdad.
She was just saying that that she wants to thank all of us, that going through the process with the agency and everything helped her grow as a person, also as a mother, and that she really much likes to thank all of us. We actually thank Melody for joining and for the beautiful words that you've said. And for my part, as always, anyone has any questions, doubts, you can always reach to me directly. And nice having you join this webinar. So see you another day, guys.